Hello and welcome once again to this online session in the subject of signals and systems. Till now in the subject, in last 15 to 20 online sessions, we primarily discussed about signals and systems. We identified different types of signals. We also looked at different signal operations. Similarly, we also identified different classes of systems like linear, non-linear, time invariant, time variant, causal, non-causal, etc. Now, in the remaining part of the syllabus in this subject, we would try to focus on a specific class of systems which we call it as linear time invariant systems. In short, we call it as LTI systems. LTI systems are one of the most fundamental systems to start with and to learn. And in this session, we would try to introduce ourselves with LTI systems, their importance, and how LTI systems can be conveniently represented. We will try to look at this different topics. So let us start with today's presentation, understanding what LTI systems are. We know that what are linear systems, what are time invariant systems, then LTI systems are basically those class of systems which are both linear as well as time invariant. So systems that are linear and time invariant are called linear time invariant or LTI systems. Let us revise what we know about linearity and what we know about time invariance. Let us say we have a system described by the relation or the function t, where if input is x of t, my output y of t is equal to capital T of x of t. Then we know that this system is said to be linear if it satisfies two properties. Which are this? These are property of additivity and property of homogeneity. What does this property mean to us? It simply says that if I give an input which is equal to ax1t plus bx2t, then the output y of t should also be equal to ay1t plus by2t. One other way of saying this is something similar to satisfying superposition. If in the input I have linear combination of inputs, then output would also be linear combination of individual outputs. That is, T of ax1t plus bx2t is equal to atx1t plus btx2t is equal to ay1t plus by2t. So, systems which satisfies this property is called linear system. And how do we define time invariant system? Then time invariance is defined as if the input to the system is shifted in time, that is, it is applied at some different time, either delayed or advanced, then the output of the system should remain same. It also gets shifted in time by the same amount. It means that if x of t as an input generates the output y of t, then any input x of t minus capital T, where I show that the input is shifted in time by capital T units, then the output y of t would also remain same but get shifted in time also by the same amount capital T. This simply shows that the output is function of input but it is not function of time. It means that the output does not change with respect to time provided the input is same. So, these are two properties of linearity and time invariance, And the system that satisfies both these properties are called LTI systems. As we have described this for continuous time, the same way we can describe it for discrete time systems also. That is, a discrete time LTI system can be defined as a system which satisfies these two properties. T of ax1n plus bx2n is equal to ay1n plus by2n, and T of xn minus k, that is the time shifted version of input, generates the time shifted version on the output side. Fine. Now, if we think of why we are interested in LTI systems, why LTI systems are so important to us, because we have studied different types, different classes of systems, out of which we are now narrowing down our work only on LTI systems. The reason for this is that LTI systems are one of the most important and fundamental class of systems which are used in system analysis. Why they are important and fundamental? Because many processes and systems that we use can be modeled as linear and time invariant. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by this is that the system may not be purely linear, or a system may not be purely time invariant. However, the system with some assumptions can be modeled as linear and time invariant. So there is a big class of systems or processes which can be modeled as linear and time invariant. And in fact, you have gone through number of such examples or number of such systems. Let me give you an example of it. This, probably you would remember, is the forward bias characteristics of a diode. The actual characteristics of diode is shown by a blue line here, which shows that it is not a linear system. However, we know that for analyzing circuits made up of diode, we use approximation model. And by one of the approximation model, we approximate the characteristics of diode as shown by the red line. So what we have done is that we have divided the region of operation of diode in two parts. In one part, the relation between current and voltage is shown by a straight line which is horizontal, and in another part, we have shown the characteristics or the relation between voltage and current again by a straight line with some slope. So what we have done is, we have divided the relation, or we have divided the behavior of the diode in two parts, and each part we have considered it to be linear. This, you would remember, we popularly call it as piecewise linear characteristics of diode. Right? Similarly, if you take the relation between current and flux, it may be in your it may be in devices like transformer. Then we know that as you increase the current, the flux increases, but after some value, it has an effect of saturation. That is, with increase in current, the increase in flux is less. However, we know that there is always a region where the relation between current and flux can be considered to be almost equal to straight line. So again, what we do is that in saturation region, that is the region beyond this or region beyond this, we consider the relation between the flux and the current by a different straight line here, and in between, where the relation is almost directly proportional or linear, we show it by a different straight line. So again, what we have done is that the relation between current and flux is actually not linear. It is non-linear. However, we have made it linear by again taking an approach of piecewise linear representation. Yes? So, this is what I say, that system may not be purely linear. However, if the system can be modeled into a linear system, we would always do it. And this is the reason of saying that many processes or systems can be modeled as linear in time invariant. Now if we ask ourselves that why do we do this? Something which is not linear, why do we model it as linear? The reason for this is that there are many standard tools and techniques that are available to work with linear and time invariant systems. It means that I do have a ready reference, I do have a knowledge base, a very good knowledge base about linear and time invariant systems. Yes? So we can use such tools and techniques to analyze LTI systems, which makes our job relatively easier. Some of the tools and techniques you already know to work with LTI systems in system analysis, particularly tools like Laplace transform, Fourier transform, Z transform is something that we are going to discuss predominantly in this subject. Then in the subject of control theory or control systems, you might have also discussed something like Raoult's criteria, Nyquist criteria, which define stability of LTI systems. So we have number of tools and techniques available which helps us to analyze LTI systems. And this makes our task relatively easier. And this is the reason why we are interested in LTI systems. If the system is non-linear or time variant, then each system has its own characteristics, and broadly speaking, each system has to be individually studied. I cannot standardize my results so far as non-linear or time variant systems are concerned. However, I can standardize my results for LTI systems. It means that if two LTI systems are analogous, are similar, then the result of one, that is insight about one system, would automatically give you insight about another system. And popularly, you have done this in subjects like control theory, control systems, where you have the concept of analogous systems, and you divide the system in terms of either order of the system or type of the system, and you claim that, or we claim that all systems of similar order or similar type would behave in a similar way. So this is the reason why we are primarily interested in LTI systems. Right? Now, in the study of LTI system, something which is very important to understand and something which is very powerful yet simple to use is the concept of impulse response. So let us try to define what do we understand by impulse response. We all are aware about the signal impulse. By the word response, we mean the output. So, if I try to define impulse response is nothing but the output of the system when the impulse signal is applied as an input. That is, to a system, say for example, what I have shown here, to a system, if I apply x of t as delta t, that is my input is impulse, then the output of the system y of t, that is t delta t, is called the impulse response. And we know what an impulse signal is. Yes? This impulse response of the system is popularly denoted in literature as h of t. So throughout this course, wherever you find h of t, it simply indicates that this is the impulse response of the system, that is, this is the output of the system when the input is impulse. Same way, for discrete time system also, we know what an impulse signal is or how an impulse signal is defined. And for discrete time system also, the impulse response represents the output of the system when the input is delta n. Now, what is so significant about this impulse response? The claim is that if we know the impulse response of the system, then we know the system completely. I repeat what I am trying to say. Right? What I am trying to say is that if you know the impulse response of the system, that is, if you know the output of the system when the input is impulse, then you basically know everything about the system. That is, impulse response completely characterize LTI system. Other way of saying this is that if I know the impulse response of the system, then I can find the output of the system for any arbitrary input. My input now can be anything. For any given input, if the impulse response of the system is known, then the output can be calculated. Yes? So, this becomes quite important. Because if I know impulse response, then what I know is I know everything about the system. I can find the output of the system for any given input. So this is a big claim. In the coming slides, we will try to understand how to do this, but at present, it seems to be interesting. Right? Hence, if the impulse response is known, the system can be characterized, and hence, like we represent systems using differential equation or difference equation, we also represent the system using its impulse response. In earlier online sessions where we were discussing system classification, we have primarily represented system in terms of either differential equation if it were continuous time systems, or we have represented it in terms of difference equation if they had been discrete time systems. So, as systems can be described using differential equation or difference equation, same way we would use impulse response as a tool to represent LTI systems. So, impulse response is one of the alternatives which are used in system representation of LTI systems. Let us try to see how this becomes possible. We will try to understand this in two steps. In the first step, we would try to represent any arbitrary input in terms of impulse signal. And in the second step, using impulse signal and using the properties of linear and time invariant system, we would try to find the output of the system for any arbitrary input. So let us start with the first part, that is representing any arbitrary signal in terms of impulse signal. Let us try to understand this concept taking an example. This would be relatively easier to understand. Let us say that we have a discrete time signal x of n defined as this. It is a finite duration signal ranging from -2 to 3. If I want to sketch this, I can sketch x of n like this. Let us say that this x of n is my input signal to the system. Now, if I want, I can represent this signal x of n in this form. That is, I represent this signal as summation of 6 signals, where each signal represents only a specific value of x of n. That is, if I try to look at this, here it is a signal where it has a non-zero value only at -2. And what is the value? The value is 1, which is the value of x at -2. This signal is having a magnitude of 2 at n equal to -1. The magnitude is exactly same as the magnitude of x of n. The third signal, which is non-zero only at n equal to 0, and the magnitude of this is 3. Same way, the magnitude of this signal is equal to 4 at n equal to 1. At n equal to 2, the magnitude is 3, and at n equal to 3, the magnitude is 2, exactly same as what x of n is. Now, we know how signal addition takes place, signal addition is basically point-to-point addition, and hence I can say that if I try to add these 6 signals, I would get x of n. There should not be any doubt or problem in understanding this. If I add the 6 signals, I would get x of n. Now what are all the signals? The signals can be individually represented as, for example, this signal can be represented as delta of n plus 2. We know what is delta of n. Delta of n is equal to 1 at n equal to 0, and it is 0 at all other places. So when I say delta of n plus 2, this is basically advanced version where the signal is shifted at n equal to minus 2. So this signal, if I try to represent, I can represent it as delta of n plus 2. Similarly, if I look at the second signal, then you can understand that this is nothing but delta of n plus 1, but generally the delta has, we talk about unit impulse, and hence its magnitude is 1, but here the magnitude is 2. Here the magnitude of the signal is 2, so I am multiplying 2 with it. So this is 2 delta of n plus 1. Same way, this is again same as delta n, because delta n is equal to 1 at n equal to 0, and it is 0 at all other places. So this signal, if I see, this signal is non-zero only at n equal to 0. However, the magnitude of this signal is 3, so I would represent this as 3 delta of n. Same way, this is delayed version of delta n. It is delayed by one sample, so this should be delta of n minus 1. However, the magnitude is 4, so I would write it as 4 delta of n minus 1. Similarly, I can write this as 3 delta of n minus 2. I can write this as 2 delta of n minus 3. So, if I look at the signals individually, then the signals are nothing but impulse signal shifted in time and multiplied with some constant. And we know that if I add all the 6 signals, I basically get x of n. So I can write x of n as summation of all this. That is delta n plus 2 plus 2 delta n plus 1 plus 3 delta n plus 4 delta n minus 1 plus 3 delta n minus 2 plus 2 delta n minus 3. Yes? We know that this coefficients of delta n, that is this 2, this 3, this 4, this 3, this 2 basically comes from what? These are nothing but the values or the magnitudes of x of n at different values of n. So, if I want, I can express this constants in terms of values of n as delta of n plus 1 has a coefficient of 1. It has a multiplying or scaling factor of 1. And this 1 is nothing but the value of x of n at n equal to minus 2. So this is x of minus 2 delta n plus 2. Similarly, 2 is the value of x of n at minus 1. So this is x of minus 1 delta of n plus 1. Similarly, 3 is the value at n equal to 0. So this is x of 0 delta of n. Similarly, x of 1 delta of n minus 1, x of 2 delta of n minus 2. And lastly, this 2 is nothing but the value of x at n equal to 3. So this is x of 3 delta of n minus 3. Yes? If I want to express this x of n more in general, then I can actually write it like this. I have not done anything else. If you see, kindly follow my cursor. If you see terms from here up to this, that is from x of minus 2 to x of 3, then this is the same equation as what we have written exactly above. X of minus 2 delta n plus 2, x of minus 1 delta n plus 1, x of 0 delta n, up to x of 3 delta n minus 3. What I have done, I have added one term here, I have shown one term here, which is x of minus 3 delta n plus 2. Now what would be the significance of this? The significance of this would be that I am trying to represent this as a continuous summation of different delta signals. However, this would not affect the value of x of n, because what is x of minus 3? We know that x of minus 3 is basically 0. X of n is having its spread from minus 2 to 3, from minus 2 to plus 3. So if I write x of minus 3 delta n plus 2, this in any case is going to be 0. Similarly, x of 4 delta n minus 1, x of 4 is 0, so this in any case is going to be 0. So if I want, I can write a previous term also, x of minus 4 delta n plus 4, and I can go in fact up to infinity. And this would not matter because all other values of x are 0. Why am I doing this? Is to express x of n in a general form. To express x of n in a general form. How we can generalize this? So this is the same equation that we have discussed in the previous slide. So how I can generalize this? I can generalize this as, I can write x of n is equal to k from minus infinity to infinity, x of k delta of n minus k. This x of k, what are the different values of k? The different values of k is from minus infinity to plus infinity. In fact, we have here k equal to minus 3, k equal to minus 1, sorry, minus 2, k equal to minus 1, k equal to 0, k equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I am saying, I am extending it from minus infinity to plus infinity. And this would not matter because if the value of x of n is 0, then this is not going to contribute in addition. Adding a 0 would not contribute or would not change anything. So to make it more general, not restricting ourselves only to x of n, not restricting ourselves only to x of n, which basically has only 6 non-zero values, if I represent it like this, I can have a more general form where length of x of n would not matter now. In fact, x of n can be an infinite length signal, and that signal can be represented like this. So if you understand what we have primarily tried to do, we have taken any arbitrary input x of n, understand this, that now this notation is not restricted to this example. This example was given just for the sake of understanding, simplifying the understanding of representing a signal with impulse signal. However, now once we are stating this relation, it shows that any signal x of n is basically represented in terms of impulse signal. In fact, the signal is linear combination of shifted impulse signal which is scaled by the value of input x of k or x of n. Yes? So, in representation of system using impulse response, we have tried to achieve the first step, which is representing any arbitrary signal in terms of impulse signal. We can represent x of n as summation k from minus infinity to infinity x of k delta of n minus k. Now understand that delta of n minus k is basically an impulse signal which is shifted by k units, and x of k is one particular value of x. So x of k is basically constant. If I take a value of k to be equal to minus 3, then I will get x of minus 3, which is a constant, say 0. If I take the value of k to be minus 2, then I will get x of minus 2, which is a constant. So the input signal x of n is represented as linear combination. By linear combination we mean addition. Linear combination of shifted impulse signal which is multiplied by a constant, and that constant is basically value of x at a particular value of k or n. Right? Now having done this, let us try to use this concept in finding the output of the system for any arbitrary input using impulse response. So what is the claim? The claim is that if the impulse response is known, then for any input we can find the output. So let us start with the given assumption that let the impulse response h of n of LTI system is known. So what do we know? We know the output of the system when the input is delta n. We know this. H of n is something that is known. Now if h of n is known, then let us try to give any arbitrary input x of n to this system. Let us try to give any arbitrary input x of n to this system. Now, any arbitrary input we have just now discussed can be represented as linear combination of impulse signal. So, x of n can be represented as summation k from minus infinity to infinity x of k delta of n minus k. Then, y of n, which is equal to tx of n, can now be represented as t summation k from minus infinity to infinity x of k delta of n minus k. I have simply substituted the value of x of n here. Now, because the system is linear, we know it satisfies this property. That is t, a x1t plus b x2t is equal to a t x1t plus b t x2t. That is, you sum the input and then apply to the system is equal to you individually apply inputs to the system and then sum the output. Talking it in other way or representing it in other way, we can say that if the system is linear, this summation can be taken out. That is, ax1t plus bx2t, I take this as an input and try to find the output. That output is same as I individually apply the input and try to find the output and then I add the output. It means that this summation which is there inside this t can actually be taken out, or this t can be taken inside. As you know, this summation, this plus is inside the t. Now what we have done? We have taken t inside, we have individually calculated tx1, tx2 and we have taken the summation out. So what we can do is, we can write the above equation as this. We can take summation out and we can we can calculate the output for each individual inputs, x of k delta n minus k. Yes? Further, this expression shows that if I have ax1t, it means that if x1 is multiplied by some constant a, then this a can also be taken out. It means that the output would also be multiplied by the same constant a. In this expression, if we understand, then this x of k is basically a specific value of x of minus 3, x of minus 2, x of minus 3. So this is basically constant. You can go to the previous slide where we have discussed this. This x of k is basically a constant. And hence this constant can be taken out of t. That is, I can write this as x of k t of delta n minus k. So this y of n can be expressed like this. Let us continue this here. Right? So the same steps are shown. Y of n is now represented as summation k from minus infinity to infinity. I have taken x of k out, t of delta n minus k. Now we also know that the system is time invariant. Now if the system is time invariant, then if the input is shifted in time by k units, the output would also get shifted in time by k units. Now if I see this is the input to the system, which, because this is t of delta n minus k, so this is the input to the system, and this input is impulse, and we know what is the output because of impulse. We know that if the input is delta n, the output is h of n. Now if this delta n is shifted by k samples, then output would also get shifted by k samples. That is, t of delta n minus k would be nothing but h of n minus k. Again, understand what I am trying to say. We have discussed in the previous slide that we know the impulse response of the system. That is, we know the output of the system when the input is delta n. And what is that output represented as? That output is represented as h of n, which we call it as impulse signal. Now what do we find here? This is t of delta n minus k. So what is the input to this? The input to this is delta of n minus k. So what should be the output of this? The output should also be h of n minus k. Why? Because the system is time invariant. So these two steps, these two simplifications are achieved because the system is linear, and this simplification is achieved because the system is time invariant. So now what do we find? We find that the output y of n can be expressed as summation k from minus infinity to infinity x of k h of n minus k. So now if input is given to me, it can be any arbitrary input, but if input is given to me, then I know all values of x. If impulse response of the system is given to me, then I know h of n. And if I know h of n, I can always calculate h of n minus k, because it is nothing but shifted version of h of n. So if impulse response is known, if the input is known, I can calculate the output. And this is what we say, that impulse response completely characterizes my system. Or this is what we say, that impulse response of the system, if it is known, then the output can be calculated for any arbitrary input except. Yes, this relation that we have derived, that y of n is equal to summation k from minus infinity to infinity x of k h of n minus k, is popularly known as convolution operation. And because we have discussed this for discrete time system, this is specifically called as convolution sum, because this is summation. So what does convolution sum as a mathematical operation gives us? It gives us that if the system impulse response is known, h of n is known, if the input to the system is known, that is x of n is known, then using this relation we can find the output of the system. The convolution operation, that is this formula, this relation, is popularly represented as x of n asterisk h of n, and it is read as x of n convolution h of n. Now whatever we have discussed till now regarding discrete time systems, the same is true for continuous time LTI systems also. That is, if h of t is known, yes, if h of t is known, then for any arbitrary input x of t, we can calculate the output y of t. And what would be the relation? Y of t would be given as integration tau from minus infinity to infinity x of tau h of t minus tau d tau. Let us try to compare these two relations, and we would find that these two relations are exactly same or similar. We are talking about output. Here we are talking about y of n because it is discrete time. If it is continuous time, we would talk it in terms of y of t. Now how y of n is represented here? Y of n is represented as we are introducing a variable k which varies from minus infinity to infinity. And we are taking summation over k. Here we are introducing a variable tau which is again from minus infinity to infinity, and as we are doing summation over k, here we are doing integration with respect to tau, so we have d tau. Here we have x of k, here we have x of tau, and here we have h of n minus k. See, n comes from here, h of n minus k, so here we would have h of t minus tau d tau. So both the equations are exactly similar. One is the equation for discrete time LTI systems, another is the equation of convolution for continuous time LTI systems. And this is popularly called as convolution integral. Yes? So we have two important relations using which we can find the output of a system for any arbitrary input, and this is possible through the mathematical operation of convolution. This is possible through the mathematical operation of convolution. Yes. So we note that if we know the impulse response h of n or h of t of the system, then we actually know everything about the system, because then for any input we can calculate the output. Right? With this, we conclude this online session. In the next online session, we would try to understand convolution little more in detail through examples. Thank you for joining this session. Thank you very much.